You're listening to Power Athlete Radio, a podcast dedicated to empowering your performance every damn day. Join former NFL pro and Power Athlete founder John Welborn as he dissects the greatest minds in strength, conditioning, and more. So whether your goal is to be the hammer, destroy mediocrity, or simply move the dirt, you've come to the right place. Now with the warm-up done, let the gains begin.
We interrupt this episode with a shameless self-promotion. Commit more, get more. Commit to 365 days of battle-tested, no bullshit programming, and we'll throw in lifetime access to our nutrition protocols plus a one-on-one consultation absolutely free, so we can craft you a game plan for 2025. I spent a decade smashing heads in the NFL and even longer building monsters in the weight room, so I know exactly what it takes to turn your strength conditioning goals into reality. So whether you want to learn to lift or crush the competition, Power Athlete has you covered. Commit to the cause at powerathletehq.com. Pick the program, then select Athlete Yearly at checkout to claim this limited time offer. Don't sit on the sidelines. Sign up today. Now back to the show.
Can you actually build strength and lose fat at the same time, or is that just wishful thinking? What's the Power Athlete playbook for pulling this off?
Yes, 100%.
So that's body recomp, right?
I always felt that gaining muscle and losing fat was one of those like mythical beasts, you know, but for myself, I've seen it not only happen to me, but I've seen it happen to other people. If you lift weights and follow a Power Athlete program that is well steeped in the research. I mean, the research is getting really, really jiggy and has really come out where they talk a lot about fatigue and working to sets to failure and reps in reserve and like the sets and the reps and how you pit it. And we backed into this stuff pretty accurately over 10 years. I mean, we just have more data points than anybody else. So it's neat to see the research falling in line with our training. But if you continue to follow a program like Jack Street, making sure that your calories are dialed, you're eating a high protein diet, and you're doing enough work to keep you in some form of caloric deficit. What I personally like to do is I like to set my calories, make sure that I'm eating high protein diet, lift weights, and then I use the aerobic work to really dig myself into that deficit. And if you can stay in that deficit, build an aerobic base, lift weights, eat a high protein diet, and lift, and you know, train with incredible consistency, you 100% can lose fat and gain muscle, and I've done it myself.
Yeah, resistance training, it doesn't seem like there's a way around it. You have to put yourself against some resistance and seek to build muscle, or use any the methodology in Power Athlete to build muscle. Well, and that's really
think about this. Muscle, it does not happen by accident. Like all these people, like very few have met people like, man, I went into the gym, accidentally got jacked. Like that's very rare. If it happens, I like to talk to that person and case study them. But for the most part, muscle is an adaptation that your body does not necessarily want. It's really expensive. You got to eat extra calories. You got to rest. It adds mass. It's, you know, if you go into starvation, muscle's the first thing your body gets rid of because it's by far the most expensive. So it's an adaptation that your body is not excited for. And you have to force that adaptation, and you force it through not only eating a high protein diet. So, you know, protein's extremely muscle sparing, lifting weights, which is going to, you know, stimulate that protein synthesis. And also as you're in that deficit, make sure that you are muscle sparing, and then just making sure that you're in the deficit. And the only way you're going to know you're in that deficit is you got to weigh yourself. You got to set the calories, step on the scale. And if it goes up and down, you got to kind of fine tune it from there. For me, having done this, I know exactly kind of what mine is. And for me, I eat pretty consistently isocaloric, which means I set my protein, figure out what my protein is, match the carbs, and then whatever's left over on that third's isocaloric diet, I end up backing into the fats. And that's kind of my baseline. And then when I need to lean out or drop some pounds, all I do is just ratchet the carb and the fat back. And for the most part, if I do that, you know, creatine is another helpful one to keep creatine in there, making sure that you're hydrated, and also you've been taking, you know, your element salt. So it's really just a matter of making sure that you're super consistent, not only weighing and measuring your food. And I know it sounds super dorky, but I think if you really want to fine tune it, you're going to have to do things that you've never done before. Yeah. I also know when we started using the Morpheus, it actually will, when you go and do it, you get your HRV score every morning, and it'll give you a target amount of minutes that you need to be in that kind of blue zone, which is kind of that active recovery. For me, it's like sub 149 beats a minute. And then I know that I got to do roughly 30 to 35 minutes, 4 to 5 days a week. It's really like, I'll go like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then if I'm short, I'll jump on Sunday. And if I can get those kind of 5 days right around there, and I can get that 150, 160 minutes, staying lean is not much of an issue.
Yeah. Do you mostly go to Whole Foods or
no?
Or do you use not the store, but like do you eat mostly Whole Foods, or do you use any kind of like protein supplement?
Yeah.
In that, or
I try to get 1/3 of my calories at max from protein drinks. I am, and this is a shameless plug for Mark Bell. Mark Bell's Steak Shake is incredible. It is like it's got fats in it. I mean, it's got a lot of stuff in it, but it's like a meal. I do 3 scoops, which is like 72 to 75 grams of protein, and it's thick.
Yeah.
Like I shake it and I let it sit for a few minutes and then bring it back. But I'll hit one of those, and then the rest of my food is really just coming from sirloin or chicken. Mm-hmm. So I kind of cycle between the protein shake, sirloin, and the chicken. And if I can get some turkey, that'll be good. The sirloin is good for me because it's by far the leanest cut. If I eat something like picanha or something I really enjoy, it just blasts my fucking calories out. And but I just factor it in. I know exactly what the calorie count is with the protein, and if I eat that, I just can't eat any carbs. Yeah. So you can kind of mess up a little bit, but as long as you're smart on the backside and you're weighing and measuring, when you're going to blow it. So what I'll do is I got a big ass picanha last week, cooked it on Sunday. I just didn't eat. And then I just basically made that picanha, and that's all I ate. And I must have eaten like 3 pounds of picanha, which pushed me way over.
Yeah, I think that gives you a stripe, actually, in jiu-jitsu.
Well, little known fact, I've had multiple Brazilians co-sign on my picanha, which is pretty funny because they're extremely arrogant about their picanha cooking. Yeah. And I got it from Shanji, and even Philippe said, this is pretty good. This is as good as I've had.
Well, Persian guy is also signing off on it. It's really freaking good.
Yeah, I do make a good picanha.
Next question.
Yeah.
If you're in the thick of training, how do you tweak your nutrition to fuel performance without blowing your shot at leaning out? This is a huge one because I feel like when you train harder, you want to eat more.
Yeah.
Because maybe you feel beat up or something like that. So I guess, how do you lean out and still stay on your nutrition and still perform at your highest?
This episode of Power Athlete Radio is powered by Train Heroic, the most immersive strength training app experience on the market. We've built an online training business by partnering with Train Heroic to deliver all of our world-class training programs like Jack Street, Hammer, Field Strong, and Grindstone. To learn which Power Athlete training program best suits your goals, head to powerathletehq.com/training. And if you're a coach looking to build a business with the best training tech in the business, head to trainheroic.com/powerathletehq. And now back to the show. Man, that's a tricky one. You're tying a motion to eating, and I think sometimes your body's pretty smart. The biggest one I've seen is probably when people are beat up from the training, they feel overtrained, they want to eat carbs. Mm-hmm. So making sure that if you're going to eat carbs, you're real smart with the carbs that you attack. Like, don't sit down and eat a bag of chips.
Or a whole pizza.
Which I've done. My kids... So this is a funny story, but this is kind of a funny deal. I don't like shopping with my wife and kids for food because what they do is they just randomly go and they just throw shit in. And I'm like, what is all this? And so Kate takes the girls to Whole Foods, and then I go to Central Market because they have an incredible meat counter. Like, I can get elk there. You can get buffalo. They get these really dope Wagyu sirloins from New Zealand that are incredible. And they have big picanhas as well. So it's a pretty really good butcher shop. I mean, the other one is Texas Meat Traders. My boy Darren over there has incredible stuff too. So on Sundays I'll go up there and I get kind of all my stuff. And I don't buy chips, but yet I'll come back and the girls will have bought some pretty good chips, and they'll like get themselves like a little bowl and they'll be eating them. And I'll like let me try one. And if I like circle back around, I'm going to destroy that entire bag. Yeah. So I know that I just don't eat chips. It's like sitting down at a restaurant, they bring like chips and salsa or guac. It's just, like, don't bring them. Yeah. So I know what my weakness is, and it's something crunchy and something that like has some flavor. So I just don't eat chips.
Yeah. Make your palatable foods be the high protein stuff. Yeah. So the sirloin or whatever, salt the crap out of it, enjoy it. I also found that salsa with my rice bowl of steak and rice is a really good way to like, beef it up, but without adding a lot of calories. Tomatoes have like very little calories in them. So I love salsa with my...
The other day after open mat, there's the Show Your Sugar, which is the Hawaiian barbecue food truck that's like 2 blocks from HQ. So I got done and I was like, you know what, I had a good day. I'm going to go treat myself. So I went over there and they had chicken katsu and they also had beef teriyaki on extra rice, no mac salad. So I was able to pick that up. But I think as long as you set your calories and they're realistic, like a 300 to 500 deficit, like if I eat maintenance and I can do, I just did 30 minutes on the bike and I was able to get like 475 calories on the Morpheus. So like I know exactly what my calories are and I eat those calories and then I just use the training to get into a deficit. And as long as you look at it like that and you don't really starve yourself, what makes me nervous is when all of a sudden you're like 275 pounds and the guy's like, oh, I'm eating 2,100 calories. And you're like, oh shit, like that's unsustainable. You can do that. Like, you can do that for a couple of days, but you're going to have some refeeds, because the problem is if you ratchet the calories too low, too quick, then you'll get this kind of rebound effect. And then all of a sudden you're going to go out and just crush it or go out on the weekend and overeat. I've been doing, for Power Athlete, we have a annual deal where people buy the annual, they get a nutrition template, and then they get a 15-minute coaching call. And we have a bunch of coaches in the round robin, and I do a fair decent amount of them. So I had about, 5 consults yesterday, and I've been doing anywhere from like 3 to 6 on Mondays and Wednesdays. And one of the questions popped up very similar, like I feel like I'm good Monday through Friday, and I do this, I just make bad choices on the weekend. And so we've all been there. So what I do is I kind of factor that in ahead of time. And what I'll do is I get up in the morning, I just drink some coffee. I make sure I get my aerobic work in, or if I lift weights or if we go to jits or do whatever it is, I come home and I don't eat. And I kind of just fast. I'll drink some coffee, drink some, element, whatever it is. And then I just wait to dinner. And then I go in on dinner, and I don't really count the calories. I just don't eat like an asshole. Yeah. I'll just like make sure I eat protein first. I try to like keep the chips away from me. If my wife wants to have a drink, we'll have like a drink, which is funny. I did a consult with a guy from Australia, and he's like, man, like in Australia, like you either don't drink or you drink every drink. Like there's nobody I know that has one drink.
I went to Australia in 2018, and a really common sight is those drive-through liquor stores. Yeah. And dudes will pull up with their Toyota Utes and like literally pull in a pallet of beers and liquor onto the back of their pickup truck. And I'm like,
nobody wants to drink a beer.
Yeah. Is there a kegger going on? Like, no, he's just picking up for the month. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, we'll have like a drink, and then I'm just real smart about what I eat. And then at that point, I'm done. My kind of go-to, especially if I'm like a little off on my calories, is I'll eat some of that Ziggy's yogurt. It's real high in bifidobacteria. So that was one of the recommendations Dr. Sabine made for me.
The Icelandic yogurt,
the Icelandic, right? It's real high in bacteria or bifidobacteria, which is really important. So I'll eat that kind of like if my calories are a little off, like if I'm low on protein, they have like a non-fat one that kind of like, if I eat like half a tub of that, like I'm fine. Yeah. So I think it's just kind of playing this little bit of game. Where I get nervous is when people try to land the ship or trying to land the plane without any instruments. So if you're not weighing and measuring your food and you're kind of approaching it, and then you're kind of trying to use like, how do I look in the mirror? How do my pants fit? You fuck, dude. That's not the place you want to be, because next thing you know, you go put on your gi and it feels like you're wearing spandex.
Oh, my wife put it in the dryer.
This thing feels a little tight today.
Yeah,
which is a good indicator, especially if you keep, like for me, what I have like a couple gis, and I kind of like cycle through them, and you try not to wear the same one all the time, and they all kind of fit a little bit different. You put on, you're like, oh man, this gi feels a little big. I think I'm going in the right direction. Yeah, but I think weighing yourself, I think being very conscious of what you're putting in your mouth is very important. For me, it's always going to be one ingredient, Whole Foods. I mean, unless, the girls come in with some dope chips, and then I'm like, I
think one of the tastiest things you've made for us when we came over and had like a picanha fest was, I think the most palatable was yams and maple syrup and a little bit of salt and butter. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, so the Japanese sweet potatoes, we'll run those, and I just kind of beat them up, and I mix butter, maple syrup, and sea salt. Yeah. And that's part of my death row meal. There's a pizza place, since we're talking about food. There's a pizza place here in Austin called Feral Pizza. It's a pizza truck up north off of Lamar. Yeah. They make homemade sourdough crust. and they make it like I think it's like 72 hours and they do all this sourdough. It's like legit sourdough pizza, which is hilarious because they probably figured out how to make sourdough during lockdown like every other good white chick did. And they make this dope sourdough. And so when Casey was in town from Tactic Calories, I went there and I was like, because Casey was like from New York. There's if you're from New York, you go to New York a lot, like there's a lot of ego about pizza. So we were kind of talking about pizza and he's like, they don't have pizza in Texas. I'm like, I got a place for you. So we went there and picked it up, and Casey texted me the other day. He's like, is it weird that I think about that sourdough pizza all the time? And I'm like, I do too.
It's such a good crunch on that pizza.
They do such a great job. I'm going to try to slip an order in for Super Bowl. I have to go to, or not have to, but I'm going down to Winter Strong for Sorinex on Thursday. I'll be down there Thursday, Friday, and then fly back Saturday. Cashy has flag football practice, and then he has his playoffs for flag football on Sunday. And I'm their defensive coordinator, so I can't miss.
Calling plays from the tower.
So having played in the NFL and done my previous job, I didn't realize that I didn't know that much about offense, because everything was happening behind me. Right. Like I knew blocking, but I know defenses.
Because you're reading it all the time, right?
Yeah, and all we did was watch defense. So on the other side, like I'm going through this and talking about, I need you to play force, with the sideline and this, and you're driving people back, and, I need you to squat in these zones and don't let bad guys run past you. I mean, all these like defensive things. I even put in an ode to Jim Johnson, who was their defensive coordinator for the Eagles, who since passed away. He was the mentor for like Spags and Sean McDermott and a ton of other NFL coaches. Really good dude, but he called his blitz casino. So when he called casino, that means bring the fucking house. And so I told the kids, I'm like, when I yell casino, everybody comes. Oh, there's a party in the back. And like party at the quarterback, I'll meet you back there. So I got these kids, and like I'll kind of set up, and I'm like, okay, you're playing zone, and like there's like a 7 yard, you have to be back 7 yards to blitz. So the kids play at 7, we run zones, and they understand. They'll look at me and they'll be like, zone, casino, and they're all excited for it. And then when I yell casino, I tell them just to take off running like banshees and scream like ball, and get your hands up. And most of the quarterbacks like, and then they just mess up.
Well, I think you just screwed yourself, because now all the other questions are going to be about youth football.
So Cashy's baseball coach hit me up because he wanted to do a flag football team, and a lot of the other flag football team coaches have been coaching for a number of years, and they kind of get the same players. And so we kind of took a little bit of the misfits and the kids that were first year. Yeah. And these kids are great. I have a lot of fun coaching them. Cash is got a real sneaky move where he slips to the flat and then turns it up. I've watched him run past. He threw this head fake at a kid, and the kid like buckled his knees, and Cashy went by him. I've never been so happy for that kid in my life. Yeah. And
he's a real gamer.
Dude.
He games, dude.
That kid, he's my son, but just objectively about him as a person, he wants to be the person in like the fray. Like people are kind of nervous to throw themselves into the fray. Like I'll wait for a couple people. Like I did that in football, and I did that in life. Like if somebody's like, who wants to go first? I would never raise my hand. I'd always let somebody go first to kind of like assess this, so I didn't look like an idiot. He is like the first person, like in jits, first person.
Yeah, kids jiu-jitsu class, his first day. Yeah, he wanted to demonstrate everything. Yeah. And I'm like, dude,
he wants to like be the quarterback. He wants this. Like he has a natural desire, and then when it doesn't go well, he's like, oh, it's fine. I'll get him next time. Yeah. Like he has such a great attitude. And I'm like, damn, I was so much more nervous about bucking up and like looking like an asshole and like, being the guy that lost the game, that I respect the fact that he doesn't have that. Yeah. And he's willing to go out, and he's like, oh yeah. Like, but yeah, he had a couple nice plays last week, and I came in and I was like, what do you think? He's like, I want to throw a touchdown pass. So I mean, it's I'm proud of him. He's such a good kid, dude. My brothers and I were such dicks. Yeah, he's such a good kid.
I love Cash.
Yeah, he's a good boy.
Last question about nutrition, especially with Super Bowl Sunday coming up. Let's start off this way. Is the whole bulk and cut approach outdated? What's a smarter way to add muscle without turning into a marshmallow? Because like this whole stretch from Halloween all the way till Super Bowl Sunday is kind of like a calorie fest.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
should I
everything's
bulk?
calorie fast.
Yeah.
Like everything in our so our entire world, our entire year calendar is built around food. I mean, if you look at everything from, all right, so we got, it starts really October. So then we got Halloween, and then we roll right into Thanksgiving, and then you go into Christmas, and you go into New Year's, and then we get out and it's Valentine's Day, and then it's St. Patrick's Day, and then summer starts, and like all of this stuff happens. And I think what you have to do is kind of build these things in and realize, like, I'm not a big candy guy, so Halloween's not really my deal.
Yeah.
But then I get to Thanksgiving, I like to cook turkeys. So that's kind of my, like, I would say where I break off a little bit.
Witching hour.
Yeah, I like to cook the turkey. And I also like cooking prime ribs. And like, so for what I tend to do is I tend to focus on the big protein pieces. And I eat as much protein as I can, which I know sounds super nerdy. And then if I, need something, or, there's a piece of pie or whatever, I'm like, okay, I'm going to eat this piece of pie, and I'm not going to feel bad about it.
Don't be weird.
But my original nutrition talk for CrossFit football was called "Don't Be Weird," and it became because people, like, when CrossFit got big, and especially when the paleo diet was big, and then people were trying to do paleo zone, and they were like measuring like 13 almonds, not 14. Like, it got really strange. To the point how dialed people were trying to make it. I mean, I respect that level of neuroses, but man, it just felt really exhausting. But the biggest one comes down to, you can kind of have some periods where you tend to like overeat, but like overeating and like holiday can't be every single day.
Yeah.
Like those are specific days that, like, hey, you know what? I know, these holidays are coming. Like a big one for us is always St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
I know St. Patrick's Day is coming. So like, I'm going to make sure that everything's perfect leading up to it. And then I'm going to like go out and enjoy and have a couple drinks and go out and eat a bunch of corned beef and hash or corned beef and, rye bread or whatever we go out and eat.
Yeah, but it's that night, right? I think where people get in trouble is Thanksgiving leftovers and just being like, oh, well, the family's here for a whole week. Oh, Christmas, they're here for a whole week. So we're just going to sit around, and I'm not going to leave the house and go work out like, you know what I mean?
Well,
they just want to stick around and
Yeah.
like be around the family. And guess what all the family does? We sit around and we snack.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people fall off the rails, is they lose their discipline around these holidays instead of organizing their life around, the 3 or 4 hours it takes to have the dinner.
Snacking is one of the most dangerous things that you can do. Oh. So I have like a rule: I don't eat on the couch.
Yeah.
And I broke that rule last night. We sat down, and I was actually eating that Ziggy's yogurt. It's pretty big. It's about this big.
Yeah.
And I'll eat like a third and a third and a third. So like I go through like 1 in 3 days.
Yeah.
We sat down and we watched something, and it was kind of a nervous show. There's like so what happens is when I get on the bike and I do my aerobic work, I usually pick a series, and we watched like one called The Recruit on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it. It's pretty good. It's like in their second season, and this kid's like kind of a lawyer idiot that's in the CAA. It's pretty decent. I sit down, and as I'm eating, I'm like watching, and all of a sudden I get to the bottom, and I was like, shit, I just ate through this whole thing. I was like, damn it.
Your white grilled pint of ice cream moment.
I did. I like turned and I looked at the back, and I was like, man, that's a lot of calories.
Yeah.
I just crushed. I just blew this thing out the door. And I was like, all right. And, I kind of like buy 3 of them a week, and I kind of work through them in thirds so I can kind of like get to, and then I'll, kind of manage it, and I eat 2 and then 1, and I blew it out the door. And I like remember thinking, and it's funny that you brought this up, as I like got up to go throw it away, I was like, fuck, this is why I don't eat on the couch. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't snack. Like I'm not the type of person to like, let's get a bunch of like stuff and we'll put it over here. My friends Thad and Michelle, who are some of my favorite people in the world, merely because Thad has got the biggest heart, but also Michelle, as you know them, the Joneses, makes probably the greatest charcuterie board I've ever seen.
Oof.
Dude, to the point where now, like, I've probably pumped her up way too much, because now, like, it's grown. It's like double in size. I think she went and had like a special cutting board made that, like, it's incredible. It's like if you went to a restaurant and ordered that charcuterie board, you'd be like $169 later.
Yeah.
It is incredible. And she'll like put it out, and like, we'll go over there. We're going over Super Bowl Sunday, and she'll like get this thing out, like, and present it. And I'll be like, Michelle, I have zero self-control when it comes to like a charcuterie board of like dried meat and cheese and whatnot. And God, like her attention to detail, and she knows We saw her at Kate's birthday, and she's like, I've been prepping for the charcuterie board. I'm like, don't do this to me. So then Kate's joking. She's like, how are you going to handle that? I'm like, I'm just not going to eat for like a couple days. And then I'm just going to show up and I'm going to have to fight this charcuterie board. I'm going to have to show up ready for battle because I feel like if I don't take this thing down, I'll be like, Jamie, come help me with this thing. She's like, you're on your own.
Oh my God.
So is the bulking and cutting outdated? Yes. I don't think unless you're like 14 years old and you need to, put on 50 pounds like I did, 165 pounds when I was 14 and I needed to weigh 200. There was only one way to put that weight on, and it was just by eating the seafood diet, which is eating everything that you see. Could we have done that much more intelligent? 100%. Did we have access to this? No. Where the protein shakes and what the stuff that Zangus gave us tasted awful, it was terrible. I do think, especially when I meet people that are like in there, I talked to a guy on the phone who was 52 who was trying to bulk up, and he's like, man, I need to put some weight on. I'm going to bulk. And I'm like, how much you weigh? He's like 151 pounds. I'm like, okay, you need to bulk up a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's being smart. I think people have this idea of like kind of ebb and flow. I think that you should probably, most people, let me see how I put this and not sound too prickly. Most of the people that I've met that need to lose 5 pounds of fat really need to gain 5 pounds of muscle. I tend to think that the majority of people, and we've done this too, where we've had people cut a ton of fat and they just look smaller. And like, I think that they thought like, hey, I'm going to take all this off and there's going to be something great on the inside. And they just haven't spent the prerequisite time putting on enough muscle.
Yeah.
So what I tend to recommend to people, especially in this bulking and cutting thing, is why don't we focus on putting on muscle? And then you'll be much happier with everything. Yeah. So just making sure you're eating a high protein diet, training with consistency, making sure you have a big aerobic base, and then eating enough food to potentially put on some body weight.
Yeah, the bulk cut method really only works for people who do the Sunga bodybuilding competition, right?
Well, I think it helps with drugs.
Yeah, with drugs for sure.
Because the steroids and the drugs are always going to be muscle sparing. So like, for example, if you take a ton of drugs and you eat a high protein diet and you ratchet your calories down to like 1,500 and you eat nothing but white fish, and just like, white fish, white turkey, and no fat, you're not going to lose any muscle. And as long as you're eating a high protein diet, theoretically, you're going to be putting on some. So I think that the age old deal, and then especially using a bunch of clenbuterol and thyroid medications and, all the other different drugs, I think it tends to work. But in terms of training in a natural environment, the results are much, much slower.
Yeah. Discipline.
Yeah. It just takes, did you know? You didn't lose weight overnight.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there were some days where you were like, fuck, I don't want to be doing this.
Yeah.
But the idea is like, hey, I committed to something. That's kind of why I always being able to have a co-pilot on everything. Like if you want to do something, hey, I want to do this cut or I want to do this or this, as long as I have a co-pilot, like somebody like, hey, John, does this seem like a good idea? Are you in on this? So that now I got somebody to be accountability. I think is key.
Yeah, what is it? Your ego's cashing checks, your mouth can't back up. And it's like,
your ego's checking cashes, your body can't cash. Ego's writing checks, your body can't cash.
There you go.
Top Gun.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
I saw a funny clip somebody sent me today on Instagram where those guys randomly walk up and they talk to people and they're like, oh, so what do you do on the street corner in New York? And this guy walked over to this guy and said, hey, you're dressed really nice. What do you do? And he's like, I'm an actor. And he's like, oh, anything I've been in? Or anything that I've seen or anything, have you been in anything I've seen? And he's like, I don't know what you've seen. He's like, what's your name? He's like, Willem Dafoe. And the guy's like, oh, great. I've never seen any of your movies, but like, is there any advice that you would want to have somebody to get into this? And he's like, I don't give advice. And he's like, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? He's like, I don't think about this either. And the guy's like, okay, well, love all your movies. And then it just like ended. And somebody sent it to me and I was like, dude, he was Agent Smeckler in Boondock Saints. And I would have been like, cafe latte, twist the lemon. Sweet and low.
By the way, I'm gearing up this week to watch Nosferatu. Oh. I hear he's really great in that too.
Dude, he is one of my favorite actors, but it's so random. And like people were just lambasting this dude. Like, how do you not know Willem Dafoe?
Yeah.
I mean, he was in Spider-Man. Like he's like one of the most iconic actors.
He's a pillar in cinema.
Yeah. Oh,
he's holding it up.
Yeah. He's one of the best.
Yeah.
And this guy was like, hey, and then at the end, like, I've never seen any stuff. And he's like, I loved all your films. Okay, see you later.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, bulking is out. Cutting is out. I think just lifting weights and trying to improve upon your body composition at every turn, because it's not slow. Like nobody's going to be like, hey, I'm going to get fat and try to put on all this muscle for 30 weeks and then I'm going to get shredded in 8. Like that only happens if there's a pretty serious drug protocol or you're willing to really, do some extreme stuff. And the problem is for most people, I think it's too extreme. I just like to be consistent, lift weights, eat a good diet, and tend to like ratchet and increase body composition over time.
Nice.
Dude, we got a lot more questions, but we can continue this at another time because I think
I'm getting catabolic sitting here. So
well, we can't have Arash getting catabolic, so we'll end it here and we'll pick it up at another later date. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of Power Athlete Radio. Hey there, Power Athlete Nation. Big shout out to all the heavy hitters who stuck around till the final whistle. If you've been soaking in the knowledge bombs and epic tales we've been dropping for free, here's your chance to be a game changer. Swing by kofi.com/powerathlete and toss a few bucks our way to keep the podcast fueled and firing on all cylinders. That's ko-fi.com/powerathlete. Your support makes a difference. See ya.